Josh Silverman has left the building. What does that mean for Etsy sellers? Do you need to change your strategy? What will be different going forward? I've sold on Etsy for the past 7 years, and he's been CEO of Etsy for about 8 years. So I've really seen Etsy change from the time that he came into power and to now. And Etsy has changed in so many ways, and being able to adapt to the changes that Etsy brings is actually a very, very critical part of your Etsy business. So understanding what Etsy is doing as a marketplace is absolutely critical. So what is the new CEO of Etsy going to do? We're going to talk about that in this video. And is Etsy going to be different? What is all about? What is this all about? What does this mean? Why is the stock market crashing? I'm going to talk about all of that. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name is Vlad. I've been selling on Etsy. Like I said, for the past 7 years, I've sold hundreds of thousands of orders on Etsy. That's multiple 7 figures. And I currently manufacture for Etsy Shop, where collectively we make anywhere from $6,000 to $15,000 in sales each and every day. And so for me, understanding the marketplace, understanding what the leadership does is very, very important. So we're going to talk about in this video, what does this mean for us as Etsy sellers? Now, Josh Silverman, this is kind of a hot take. I've said this before about him, and I got a lot of comments, but it really doesn't matter what you think about Josh Silverman. It really doesn't matter what your opinion about the Etsy brand, where is Etsy at. It is where it's at, and it is something that we need to be aware of. Now, Etsy went public about 10 years ago. So about 2 years into it, a little less than 2 years into it, Josh Silverman stepped in. Now, Etsy used to be a non-public company. It used to be a private company. And what a lot of people say is that Etsy used to be a great place until we went public, until corporate greed and all that stuff. But the reality is Etsy was actually losing hundreds of thousands of dollars each and every month. And so when Josh Silverman came in, he actually gave Etsy one of the biggest growth in the during this last decade. It has one of the biggest growth for any e-commerce brand. So Etsy wouldn't have existed if Josh Silverman did not implement the things that he did. Etsy needed funding. That's why they went public. But whatever you think about it, whatever Josh Silverman did 2 very important things, and this kind of underscores whether Etsy is really going to change or is going to stay the same. Number 1, he improved profitability or efficiency, and 2, he expanded the brand. That's those 2 directions he has been really, really hunkering down in. The first is efficiency or profitability. He actually changed the algorithm to be a whole different algorithm. Now, when I just started selling on Etsy, you could have put $100 of advertisement spent each and every day on one specific listings, and you would actually spend $100 on one listing, and it would be number 1 listing on the first page. Now, that wasn't really efficient because not everybody's interested in your product. And so what he did, he changed the algorithm to be a lot more dynamic, where not every single person has the same exact first page. And also the sellers would need to compete even with the advertised listings to get ranked upwards. And that improved a lot of the experience, and when customers would actually buy something that they, or at least see what they actually want, what they're actually interested. So Etsy became a lot more dynamic. And also, he expanded the brand. He wanted to push the brand international. He did a lot of, he pushed into other countries, and that really brought in a lot more traffic. And he also obviously expanded the brand nationwide. There was a time where they spent, I think, 600 or 700 millions of dollars in advertisement, and a lot of people had an issue with that. But the point is, at least, is that Etsy really wanted to expand the brand. They needed to improve their top line. Josh Silverman, his big priority was just improve the top line. Whether the bottom line improves, it's kind of like step 1. They're going to improve the efficiency so that every customer really gets exactly what they want. But at the top end, he wanted to improve that as much as possible. And now, so the stock market was growing fast, and Etsy was growing exponentially fast during COVID, especially because during COVID there was a disconnect between people, and people wanted to be a lot more personal. So Etsy was kind of providing that product. At the same time, people jumped in on the platform where they became sellers as buyers because they got stimulus checks, and so they created a bit of a community. And so Etsy really was the number 1 marketplace several quarters in a row during the shutdown, because it provided that very unique angle at marketplaces. So Etsy was growing fast. So that's something that Josh Silverman did. He actually did really well for the Etsy marketplace. So that's why the stock market plunges, because what he did was actually financially good for Etsy. Now, whether you can argue the brand wise, that's a whole nother thing. He, by the way, also side note, he did open a lot more floodgates to print on demand manufacturers and overseas. He's kind of loosened the rules about reselling as long as it's personalized to some degree or modified to some degree. So that became a lot more common. And so that increased the listing posting, and that increased, the fact that you can get something very, very specific like zebra pajamas. The only way you can get that is if the listing volume goes up. And so the only way, some of the ways to do that is get bigger companies to manufacture to come in, but let the people to design it still be the kind of the handmade element. So that's kind of what he did. And that just over the years, that's been what has been happening. Now, is the new CEO going to change? Is there anything that's going to be different? Now, ultimately, you have to understand they have to deliver value to stakeholders. At the end of the day, she's going to have to, because it's a public company, by law, she has to do what is good for the stakeholders, fundamentally. Now, obviously, the way you do that is by, really satisfying the buyers. Sellers, I don't think, there's so much sellers, they really don't care much about sellers. I've had personal experience with that, as many of you might know, but the majority is like, hey, focus on buyers, and that will deliver value to the stakeholders. Now, what does that mean? Essentially what it means, because Josh Silverman gave Etsy some of the biggest growth, for her to fundamentally deviate from that is going to put it at a risk. And so she's going to be in a very hot spot if she deviates from the direction that Josh Silverman did. The second thing is, because the economy is kind of unsure right now with tariffs and a lot of things being really risky right now, they're not going to make any major changes. Now, even though overall traffic volume from Etsy this time to last year only dropped by, I think, like 3%, that's the only difference. So a lot of people are saying, oh, Etsy's gone down in traffic. Well, it's only 3% less than last year, so it's not really that significant. But still, they're not going to make any sudden changes to the marketplace that will really impact financial or make a really big change. However, because she was the CEO of Depop, where was it? CEO of Depop. It's a more focused on Gen Z, this young generation, and so I think what's going to be is there's going to be a bit more tune-ups to Etsy, I believe. I think she's going to focus a lot more, or she's going to bring that experience to with the younger population, because a lot of people on Etsy are kind of older, in their like 30s, 35 and older. But she's going to bring in a lot of young people, which I'm assuming is going to be a lot more engagement. As far as when you come to the platform, there's more engagement than just shopping. So I think that's going to be a bigger emphasis. However, I think Etsy really kind of fell flat on their face as far as the TikTok style approach. But yeah, personally, I think what would be cool is if they had, TikTok has this where it's live, you can sell your product live. I think that would really make the experience kind of fun, because then you get to see who made it. They can tell their story. I think stuff like that would be really cool, but that's just my personal opinion. But I would imagine she would put a lot more of a younger spin on Etsy, which could be good, could be bad. We'll see. But she's fundamentally not going to change anything in regards to where Etsy's at. It's still going to focus on making sure it's efficient, making sure we expand the brand. And I think expanding the brand will go a bit more vertical instead of just kind of other countries, but a bit more vertical into kind of demographics we're going to get. So as far as what you need to do as a seller, I think continue doing what you do. Traffic is still the same, even though people out there are freaking out. Traffic is relatively the same. Continue to create, continue to be genuine with your product. Focus down on customer, make customer focus, make the buyer the central thing of your whole, your whole design, whether you manufacture, whether, the speed of at which you manufacture, the style at which you design. Focus on the buyers, focus. And you're going to be essentially always going to win, no matter what are the changes, if you're going to be focusing on the buyer. So I don't think there's anything to be freaked out about. The stock market is plunging because Josh Silverman did really well for Etsy, and I think just big investors are just kind of concerned whether that's going to change. But I think, because I would imagine she would understand that they're and she was part of the board of Etsy, so it's not like she's coming in from the outside. So yeah, I don't think much is going to change. So if you like this video, subscribe, like and subscribe, and until next time, you guys have a great one.